A once invincible billionaire whose fortune had grown more than 2,000% in recent years, now deflated. Stock prices have abruptly tumbled for Gautam Adani's myriad of companies after a U.S. short seller firm made allegations of fraudulent practices. Half of the Adani Group's fortune, more than $110 billion, vanished in a flash, leaving some investors worried.
Ladies and gentlemen, gather around for a wild ride as we embark on a series of articles on the Adani Group. This is not your average business empire. No, sir. This Indian multinational conglomerate has it all. Corruption scandals, shady deals, family drama, and a knack for finding itself in the center of controversies. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. So fasten your seatbelts, grab your popcorn, and let's dive in. India, the land of brilliant entrepreneurs, engineers, and technologists. A place where dreams come true and anything is possible. Except, of course, for a functioning capital market that's broken beyond repair. And if you dare criticize the country's elite businessmen and politicians, you might just end up in prison. But hey, or at least the corporate fraudsters are thriving. It's the one thing that's going unchecked in this circus. So cheer up. Hindenburg Research has uncovered some juicy tidbits about Adani. Turns out, they've been cooking the books, manipulating stocks, and laundering money for decades.
Accusations of fraud and stock price manipulation.
As Adani Enterprises is facing unprecedented turmoil, its shares have plunged by nearly 20%. 7 listed companies of the Adani conglomerate have lost a combined $48 billion in market, and all of this because of a report by the U.S. short seller Hindenburg.
$10 billion, then $47 billion, then $100 billion. The Adani Group's 7 listed companies have plummeted in market value after a report from short seller Hindenburg Research accused the conglomerate of wide-ranging fraud.
And they've had quite the help too. Enablers in the government and a whole industry of international companies have been more than happy to lend a hand. But it's not just Adani. Corruption is the name of the game, in Indian politics at least. And if you're hoping for any justice from the Indian securities regulator, SEBI, think again. They seem more interested in protecting the crooks than punishing them. What a world we live in, huh? These guys are a real big shot in the Indian business scene, with a massive market cap of 17.8 trillion rupees. That's US $218 billion for you international folks. That's right, they've got their fingers in so many pies. You need a dozen hands to count them all. The Adani Group, India's second largest conglomerate, run by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Gautam Adani. This guy's so rich, he's practically swimming in money. He's the 3rd richest man on earth, and he's held the number 2 spot before. The Adani Group also includes a convoluted web of private companies and family trusts. And guess what? The Adani family's paper fortune is over a US $120 billion. That's right. They've been making it rain with over $100 billion of that coming in just the past 3 years. All thanks to the meteoric rise of their stock prices. Who says money doesn't grow on trees? Get ready for a wild ride, folks, because the Adani Group is into everything. Ports? Check. Mines? Check. Airports? Check. Data centers? Check. Power generation and transmission? Check and check. These guys are all over the place, like a kid in a candy store. And get this, the 7 listed companies of the Adani Group are over 85% overvalued, even if you ignore Hindenburg's investigation and take their financials at face value. That's right, they're worth more than they should be, even without all the shady stuff going on. And here's the kicker. Infrastructure firms are supposed to be boring and low growth, right? Not for the Adani Group. Their valuation metrics are comparable to the frothiest of high-growth tech companies. Who needs Silicon Valley when you've got the Adani Group? Am I right? From a solvency perspective, that's like how financially stable they are. Multiple listed entities in the group are super-duper leveraged, way more than your average industry player. In fact, 4 out of the 7 companies are bleeding cash, and it's only getting worse. The Adani Group companies are all intertwined and interdependent, like a bunch of financial spiderwebs. None of them are immune from the performance or failure of the other companies in the group. And get this, it could take just one serious liquidity event, that's when you're all out of cash, at a single entity to trigger a negative chain reaction at the other companies. And as if that weren't enough, the Adani Group's promoter group, that's the guys in charge, have pledged parts of their equity as collateral for loans. So if things go south, they could be in for a bumpy ride. Who's up for a game of financial Jenga? So turns out the Adani Group likes to use equity share pledges as collateral for loans. That's a fancy way of saying they put up some of their stock as collateral in case they can't pay back their loans. But here's the catch. If the stock price drops, the lender can call in the collateral. And if there's not enough other stuff to put up as collateral, well, the lender can force the Adani Group to sell the stock. And then everyone panics and the stock price drops even more. It's like a financial game of chicken. But wait, there's more. The Adani Group is basically a family affair. Gautam Adani runs the show, but there are at least 8 other Adani family members on the 22 prison board. This creates a ripe environment for some seriously shady financing decisions. It's like the financial version of Game of Thrones, only with fewer dragons and more spreadsheets. The Adani Group, where nepotism is a family tradition and the family business model never goes out of style. According to former senior executives, this conglomerate is run by a select few members of the Adani Group, including Gautam Adani, his brother, and his sons, who are all very hands-on in the day-to-day business operations. Despite its rapid growth, it seems like the Adani Group is still stuck in the past, where key decision-making is solely in the hands of Gautam Adani himself. Who needs a board of directors when you have a family hierarchy? Am I right? They've been accused of corruption, money laundering, and even stealing taxpayer funds to the tune of a cool $17 billion. But don't worry, the Indian government has its back, stalling or stonewalling any investigations into their shady business practices. Apparently, they got their start in the import-export game, scamming their way through diamonds, iron, coal, and power equipment. And they've been at the center of so many investigations for corruption and stealing from their own companies. It's hard to keep track, but hey, at least they're consistent. Well, folks, that's all for part 1 of our series on the Adani Group. We hope you enjoyed this wild ride through allegations of corruption, shady business practices, and nepotism. Stay tuned for more thrilling revelations in part 2, where we'll dive deeper into the Adani Group's operations and their impact on the environment. Who knows what kind of shenanigans we'll uncover next?